Seville, Spain, December 31st, 1953. The air crackled with a tension thicker than the fog that clung stubbornly to the cobbled streets. It was New Year's Eve, and the city hummed with a frantic anticipation for the revelry to come. Yet, within the seclusion of my dimly lit bedroom, a different kind of anticipation gnawed at me. Tonight, I would finally be Daniel's. Daniel, my fiancé, was a man of quiet strength and a gaze that mirrored the endless Andalusian sky. We'd been courting for a year, a courtship steeped in stolen glances and chaste touches. But tonight, under the watchful eyes of the chipped porcelain saints on my nightstand, we would finally consummate our love. He arrived a little after 8, carrying a single perfect red rose. Its crimson bloomed against the muted tones of his winter coat as he handed it to me, his smile tinged with a nervous tremor that mirrored my own. We spent the next hour in a clumsy waltz of conversation, both of us acutely aware of the unspoken promise hanging heavy in the air. Finally, Daniel reached for my hand, his touch sending shivers down my spine. He led me to the bed, the worn sheets whispering secrets of past embraces. With a whispered apology, he removed his coat, revealing a crisp white shirt that did little to hide the sculpted planes of his chest. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. We kissed, a tentative exploration that quickly blossomed into a desperate need. Daniel's touch was a wildfire, igniting a yearning that I hadn't known existed. He undressed me slowly, his eyes devouring every inch of exposed skin. As I returned the favor, a shiver ran down my spine. My fingertips brushed past a coldness on his back that hadn't been there a moment before. I dismissed it as a trick of the draft, focusing instead on the heat building between us. We tumbled onto the bed, a tangle of limbs and passion. But as I reached for him, the coldness intensified. This time it wasn't just his back, it was everywhere. His touch, which moments ago had sent shivers of desire through me, now felt hollow, devoid of any warmth. Panic clawed at my throat. "Daniel?" I rasped, pulling back to look at him. He was staring up at the ceiling, his face etched with confusion. "Elena, what's wrong?" You're cold," I stammered, reaching out to touch his face. My hand passed right through his cheek as if he wasn't even there. Terror choked me. I snatched back my hand, staring at him in disbelief. His eyes widened in horror as realization dawned on him. He tried to reach for me, but his hand went on through my arm like smoke. "Elena?" His voice was a desperate whisper that echoed hollowly in the room. He was a ghost. My fiancé, the man I loved, had turned into a ghost in the throes of passion. It defied all logic, all reason. But the cold emanating from him, the chilling emptiness of his touch were undeniable. He scrambled back, fear contorting his handsome face. "What happened to me? Elena, I don't understand." I wanted to comfort him, to hold him and tell him everything would be all right. But how could I comfort a ghost? How could I hold someone who wasn't even there anymore? Tears streamed down my face, a hot counterpoint to the chilling presence beside me. "Daniel?" I choked out, my voice thick with despair. Are you dead?" He shook his head, a futile gesture that sent a fresh wave of terror through me. If he wasn't dead, then what was he? What had happened? Suddenly, a gust of icy wind swept through the room, extinguishing the single candle that had been keeping the darkness at bay. The room plunged into an oppressive darkness. A low, guttural moan filled the space, sending shivers down my spine. It wasn't Daniel's voice. It was something else, something ancient and malevolent. It felt like a presence had materialized out of the shadows, a presence that reveled in our terror. Before I could even scream, a frigid hand clamped over my mouth, stifling my cry. Panic threatened to consume me. I fought against the unseen force, kicking and thrashing, but it was too strong. The hand pressed down harder, a bone-chilling whisper reaching my ears. "He isn't the only one you'll lose tonight, Elena." The voice faded as quickly as it came, leaving me gasping for breath in the suffocating darkness. My heart pounded a frantic rhythm against my ribs. each beat a hammer blow against the rising tide of terror. I clawed at the unseen hand, a desperate struggle against an adversary with no form. Slowly, the pressure lessened, the icy touch fading into the oppressive darkness. Terror turned to a chilling emptiness. I was alone. Daniel, the ghost of my love, was gone, leaving behind an even more terrifying absence. The silence was broken only by the ragged rasp of my own breathing. Tears streamed down my face, blurring the darkness into an inky abyss as my eyes adjusted. I fumbled for the matches on my bedside table. The wooden rasp on the flint sparked to life, casting a flickering glow on the room. It was empty. The bed was bare, the sheets undisturbed. No trace of Daniel, no evidence that our terrifying encounter had ever happened. Was it all a dream? A cruel figment of my overactive imagination? But the lingering coldness on my skin, the terror that still clawed at my throat, screamed otherwise. Suddenly, a draft swept across the room, extinguishing the match. Panic flared once more, plunging me back into the suffocating darkness. I scrambled for the matches again, my hands shaking uncontrollably. This time, as the flame flickered to life, a single object stood out on the otherwise bare bedspread. The red rose Daniel had brought me. Its once vibrant bloom was now limp and withered, the petals dusted with an unnatural gray. It was a chilling confirmation of the horror that had transpired. The following days were a blur of sleepless nights and a consuming dread. I couldn't bring myself to tell anyone about what had happened. They would think me mad, possessed by some fevered dream. But the rose on my bed, now a desiccated husk, was a constant, horrifying reminder. Driven by a desperate need for answers, I sought out the wisdom of Senora Estella, a wizened old woman known for her connection to the unseen world. Senora Estella resided on the outskirts of Seville in a ramshackle cottage shrouded in whispers of witchcraft and forgotten lore. The journey took me through desolate olive groves, the air heavy with a strange stillness. When I finally reached Senora Estella's cottage, it stood hunched and lopsided, as if burdened by the weight of untold secrets. A shiver ran down my spine as I knocked on the weathered door. Senora Estella answered with a rasping cough. She was a frail creature, her wrinkled face a roadmap of a life lived on the fringes of society. I led her into the dimly lit parlor, the pungent scent of incense filling the air. There, under the flickering light of a single oil lamp, I poured out my story. Tears welled up in my eyes as I spoke of Daniel's chilling transformation and the disembodied voice that promised a more devastating loss. Senora Estella listened intently, her cloudy eyes gleaming with an unsettling wisdom. When I finished, a heavy silence settled in the room. "A creature lurks in the shadows, child," she finally rasped, her voice a mere whisper. "An entity that feeds on the potent power of unfulfilled desires. It preys on those consumed by passion, twisting it into a weapon of despair." Her words chilled me to the bone. "So, Daniel, is he lost?" she croaked, her voice heavy. "Trapped between the worlds, neither living nor truly dead." A glimmer of hope flickered in my heart. "But is there a way to bring him back?" Senora Estella's sigh echoed in the small room. "There may be," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But the path is fraught with danger. It requires a journey into the heart of darkness, a place where the veil between worlds is thin." Terror warred with a desperate resolve within me. I would do anything, face anything, to bring Daniel back. "I'll do it," I declared, my voice firm despite the tremor in my hands. Senora Estella's eyes held a flicker of approval. "Then prepare yourself, child. The journey begins tonight." The revelation sent a fresh wave of terror through me. But for the first time since that night of horror, a glimmer of hope flickered amidst the darkness. I was far from victory, but at least I had a path, a purpose. The fight for Daniel and for my own sanity had just begun.